Thank you for joining us today on In the Gym. I'm your host, Michael Petrella. We have a couple of great guests today. With us today is Jeff Watson, Head Strength and Conditioning Coach for Western University, and Kristine Walker, Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach for Western University. Thank you both for being on the show.
Thanks for inviting us down to Brantford. I like it.
Jeff, I want to start with you. I want you to tell us a little bit about your background. You've been at this a very long time. You've worked with some tremendous schools, some tremendous programs. We'd like to learn a little bit more about that.
I started the University of Michigan in 1984. It was my first year. By the time I got to bump into Mike Gittleson, I was in there kind of bugging him about strength and conditioning, which he was the head strength and conditioning coach for the University of Michigan football team. So Mike was kind enough to tolerate my strange questions, and he actually enjoyed the conversation. So that was the beginning of say, well, I would rather be a strength conditioning coach than a physical education teacher. After that, at the time I was on a track and field scholarship at the University of Michigan as a shot putter discus thrower, and I was doing my own workouts in the old indoor track and field house, and gradually I just became more and more involved because I wouldn't leave him alone, and became his graduate assistant. So from there I was learning the tools of the trade. He taught me all kinds of great stuff and exposed me to all kinds of different fun people, guys at Nautilus Midwest, guys at Hammer Strength, other coaches around the country. And I would say that's what kind of sealed the deal. So being a physical education teacher, while it was going to be important, I had more passion for strength conditioning.
And then after Michigan, where did you go from there?
After Michigan, I graduated. They were kind enough to pay my master's degree there. So after I kind of did my time, I thought I need to go see if I could do this myself. I interviewed for a bunch of jobs, and the closest job to where we live now in southwestern Ontario was Villanova. I thought it would be a great place to start. So I started there in the summer of 1992.
And how long were you at Villanova for?
I left there in summer of 2007 to come back up to the Western University.
Fantastic. You've been at Western obviously ever since.
That's right. So I got almost 30 years in both places, yeah. So
and that's an amazing ride.
It's a good run.
Yep. Kristine, I want to talk to you a little bit about what was your athletic career like, and also a little bit about the schooling that you're doing currently at Western.
So I started out as a swimmer, went through Western on scholarship, and then when I retired after my 5th year, I went into the coaching stream. One of the football coaches actually was the graduate assistant, and he's like, yeah, Jeff Watson's our head strength coach. Come down, introduce yourself. And then I just kind of returned day after day. So similar to what he did, and just never kind of left. So the passion was there and just started growing, which then led into sports performance and sports science research. So I did my master's with football, looking at the difference in hurry up and normal gameplay. And then my PhD work now is working with hockey sense and hockey players and looking at the visual processing skills that they need on the field, or on the ice, sorry.
And when you say video processing skills, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more for some people who aren't familiar with those terms?
So the visual processing speed would be how quick do they see something on the field or on the ice and recognize and can process that information to go make that play.
Which is obviously very important when we're talking about athletics.
Correct.
Jeff, I want to ask you, you have all this background in track and field. Why did you become a football strength and conditioning coach? Why was that the sport? Especially with us being Canadian, hockey is always on the table.
Hockey is there. So it wasn't always football first. When we first started working with Coach Gittleson, we were kind of working in the outlying weight room. So the weight rooms that I had first worked with were actually men's hockey at Michigan, and the baseball stadium weight room, which was kind of all the other sports. After a year or so in transition, we got the pleasure of moving all this heavy equipment over to the natatorium weight room down in the basement. So was working with a multitude of teams. Football becomes a priority because they have 110 players, right? So you gotta, they're gonna take up the bulk of your time whether you'd like that or not. But most of the time they're hardworking people and you enjoy it. So football becomes kind of the dominant sport. Although nowadays, I gotta say, your rowing team could be, 60, 70 strong.
Right. Kristine, I wanted to ask you, just recently you were given a great honor. You were selected as, I believe, one of only 4 women to go to NFL Forum. I believe it was for women's careers in the NFL. What was that like?
It was an incredible opportunity. Coach Marshall had gotten the email and he's like, put your name in, so hopefully you get selected. So I was fortunate enough to go down there, and it was 24 hours of just insaneness. Just listening to head coaches, scouts, GMs, listening to them talk, getting to meet them, and trying to figure out how you have to pitch yourself in 30 seconds. So.
Was it a bit of a job? I know you weren't looking for necessarily another job, but was it a bit of a job interview maybe for future prospects?
I think it was. They're trying to find the best and the brightest that are out there and how to help them get involved in the sport. They're very opening up to the diversity and trying to get different perspectives was what they were trying to drive home, that they didn't want to limit it to just males.
Right.
So.
Which is great. For wrapping up this segment, I want to ask you both, how are you training your athletes now? What is the predominant theory? What is the form that you're using? What are you guys doing in the weight room to make your athletes stronger and more conditioned for the football field?
So we've always tried to be evidence-based and research-informed, and some of the best research that's been out there for the last 40, 50 years is we try and train in a high-intensity fashion. We try and make our athletes approach momentary muscular failure. If they're willing, sometimes they're not willing, and that takes time because it's a skill they need to learn to be uncomfortable. But once they get the idea that less is more, then we're away and we're running, right? So everybody wants to do more sometimes, but if they could do a little less harder, they'll be much happier with the results.
So the belief is that as intensity goes up, the duration and the frequency have to be limited to get the best results.
Correct.
Perfect. On the next segment, we're going to have Kristine and Jeff actually bring in a couple of athletes from the Western football team and show a practical demonstration of how hard these athletes work. Jeff and Kristine are going to have their athletes work through a couple of exercises to show the cadence and the intensity that they expect when they're working out in the gym. They're going to start with this row motion. I'm going to hand it over to Jeff and Kristine.
All right, we've got Mark on the pendulum 3-way row. We're going to show you a couple things here. We're going to emphasize that this is going to develop his latissimus dorsi, his back muscles, but it's also going to help his trapezius because he's going to retract his scapula and pull through a full range of motion. All right, Mark, you ready?
Yep.
Away you go. All right, so we got a little bit of tempo. I'm gonna have Mark go back in like a 3 count. He's gonna pause, and then he's gonna explode up, right? And what I'm looking for there is I want him to have the neuromuscular intent to raise that weight as fast as he can. The whole idea is
Don't drop it, legs, don't drop it.
time under tension. We're gonna try and recruit some maximum number of muscle fibers.
Put it.
Good. So we're going to do 3 or 4 reps at each position. We're going to have Mark switch to an overhand grip and continue the set. Nice.
Control.
Keep breathing, nice and slow. Explode up. Great job, Mark. Last one, we're coming up. We'll get you a grip and we'll take it all the way down. So now, in this particular machine, this is the strongest grip. Also give you a great full range of motion. Big scapular retraction. Little pause, back down slow.
Last one.
Hold it right there. Give me a little attention. Give me a little attention just to make sure you're working hard. I want the people out there in TV land to make sure you're working hard. How about one more, one more, one more, one more? Just enough time. Hold it right there, Mark. Keep breathing, huffing and puffing. And so we're just going to give you a little forced eccentric work right there. Great job.
Thanks, Coach.
Next, we're going to have Jeff and Kristine have an athlete demonstrate the chest press. Now, we're going to use an eccentric overload technique where they're really going to emphasize the lowering, and Kristine is going to actually add manual resistance to add to the overall resistance that's already on the movement arm.
All right, we've got Alex View, a second-year defensive lineman with us. He's growing. All right, Alex, here we go. We'll shoot for like 8 to 12, and then we're going to, force a couple of reps, and we're going to have Kristine, emphasize the eccentric portion of the workout. Sure. Away you go. Good. Out, back, 1, 2, 3. Explode up. Good. 2, 3. Explode up. Great job. Nice.
Don't pop off.
I like pendulum stick handles, right, on this vertical chest. Right? Just comfortable to have a nice thick handle. Nothing's cutting into your palm. All right. Drive it out. You got a friend on the back. Yeah. Fire through it. There you go. Right? Right? Maximal neuromuscular intent to drive that weight.
Push against me. Come on. Push against. Push against.
We're just going to have you a little bit soft on the lockout. Keep huffing and puffing. Keep huffing and puffing. Yeah. Keep breathing. Keep breathing. We don't want you to hold your breath.
There we go.
Really, what we don't want your brain to just stop
9,
and you jump off
8, push up,
the
push
machine
up, 7,
before you're terminated.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Great job.
Jeff and Kristine are now going to show some lower body work that they do with their athletes. We're going to use the pendulum seated squat. So this is a great leg press activity. It's going to help strengthen the glutes, the quadriceps, and the hamstrings.
All right. This is Mark Leggio. He's our all-time leading scorer. He's our kicker. I know he looks like a linebacker, but he's our kicker. All right. What we're going to do here is we're going to have Mark do what we call iso hold. So after he pushes the weight out, he's going to hold it out there. He's going to bring his right leg down and then push it back out. Then his left leg is going to repeat the pattern, and then we're going to go both. So it's kind of like 3 movements in 1 rep. So we'll call that a round. So go right only, left only, then both. All right, Mark, you ready?
I'm good.
1, 2, 3, away you go. So we're going to keep everything nice and controlled.
3, 2, 1.
Drive it right back out. Looking good.
1, 3.
Left.
2, 1, 3, 2, 1.
Both
3,
together.
2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Good.
So sometimes we like to have little fun things that we devise to create kind of an interesting set,
3,
or maybe
2,
add a little
1. Good. Keep
density
breathing,
to
keep
every
breathing.
set that the athletes do.
Both legs. 3.
That way they stay
2,
mentally
1,
alert
3,
and engaged
2,
when they're doing these
1.
reps.
There you go. Keep that tempo.
And like I said, Mark's
3,
our kicker.
2, 1.
We need to have a
Keep your knee
big
up.
leg, and he's got a cannon.
Both legs. Pause. Good.
There we go. Keep breathing, keep breathing.
Right leg. Back up.
Oh, yeah.
Keep this knee up.
So another fun set we do sometimes is the old, like when I was at Michigan, we had the Fab
Good.
Five.
Big drive.
So in order
Drive.
to get those basketball guys to control the weights when they first
on.
got there,
Last one.
we slowed everything down.
right
So it
leg,
was a
left leg,
5
both keep
count
on.
out. It was a 5-second
leg.
hold and a 5 count back
2,
down, nice and slow.
1. This next one. Up.
Mark's doing a great job. He's finally getting some work in. It's good.
Down. All the way up. And we'll put the safeties back on first.
All right. Great job, Mark. So over the last 3 exercises, we used 3 or 4 different techniques to sort of enhance our athletes' development and keep the variety of how we do things in the weight room at a high level, so the athletes are always sort of maybe almost learning a new skill, because that way they're always, actively engaged and present when we're training them. On the first one, we saw 3 different hand grips. We saw some eccentric overload in the chest press, and here we had just a different little rep pattern. So those are, 3 great techniques of many that we'd like to employ in the weight room to keep our athletes engaged.
So it's clear from watching the practical demonstration that the athletes at Western are working very, very hard. They've recently had a good deal of success in football in Canada, going to back-to-back Vanier Cups, which is of course our national championship, actually winning the Vanier Cup in 2017. Perhaps you guys can tell us a little bit about what the experience was like and what the training was like leading up to it.
That's all you.
Well, I think we're fortunate that we had recruited great talent. So, talent trumps a lot of stuff. We also had great leadership. Those particular players in that leadership group had been gelling for 4 or 5 years, and it was their time to shine, and shine they did. So I would say that a lot of that, you know, obviously there's coaching involved, but there's also players, just the will to win. They didn't think about losing. They didn't think about it all year. They thought about just getting the job done, finishing the job. And so it was a great run, right? It's great to go undefeated. It was great to win the Vanier Cup in Hamilton, in Ontario. It's always tough to play Laval because they're a great program. And that was awesome.
When you talk about the idea of talent trumping some of these other things, because we focus a lot on the strength and conditioning, both myself at STG and you guys as strength and conditioning coaches for the program. And I've had a lot of young athletes come in here, and I've had to talk to them about it. In some cases, their parents, I have to let them know that this talent is something that it's trainable to a point. You can get better through repetitions, you can get stronger through repetitions in the gym, but it really is something that is almost special to certain individuals. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think that, you know, I think working on your craft, the skill of the position you play in football is, you know, imperative. Mark Leggio, who you saw work out, and Alex View, they're both guys that spend a lot of time working their craft. They're practicing it every day. Just little things on how precise you're going to drop the ball affects how far the ball's going to go off your foot. So, and then same with Alex. Alex is practicing hand moves. He's thinking about what the offensive line is going to do to him to stop him, and he's thinking about, well, I got this move and I got a counter move. So all those little things that are so intricate in football and happen so fast are essential that they do that. My job is just to prepare them for the kind of physical violence of football.
Right. Now, I want to ask you guys a little bit about how your scheduling works, because you're working with so many athletes and you're having to get them through, and you only have a finite amount of time and a finite amount of space. And a lot of people don't know about the controlled chaos that can be a football strength and conditioning program.
You're right, Mike. So basically, we have a short week. So basically, our window is Monday through Thursday for the travel squad. So if we look at them, they have to get a workout in either Monday or Tuesday, and then again, their second workout would be Wednesday or Thursday. If they're not traveling, if they're on the non-dress roster, they're going to get a developmental lift on Friday. But having said that, there's 110 of them that have to get in during the day. So everybody's got a different schedule. So basically, we say, we're here from 8 until 4, and you got to get in and get your workout done. Now, when they come in, they're going to see lots of other athletes in there, because on any given day, on a Monday or Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday, they're going to see 225 to 250 athletes that are also doing the same thing as they are, getting their workout done and completed for the week. Because the game schedules are usually on the weekends.
Yeah, and obviously you want your players to be fresh for game day.
They got to be recovered, yes.
Absolutely.
Not compromised, not compromised.
Now, we were all very fortunate in this past summer. We were able to go down to the Pittsburgh Steelers weight room, and their strength and conditioning coach spent several hours with us and showing us, in many cases, what might be the future of football training. And one of the big things that at least I took away from that was load management and how that's going to play in. Maybe I could get both of your thoughts on what we seen that day and what a crazy, fantastic size organization like the Pittsburgh Steelers, what they were able to share with us.
Well, Marcel, the assistant to Garrett Guimont, was awesome, right? He was basically an open book. He was not hiding anything. There was no secrets. He was really upfront, really informative. So when you walked right in the door, right to the right was like a forced platform was they use Catapult as a load management system to track their athletes, distance on the field and how fast they kind of stratified their speed. If you were running like over 20 miles an hour, if you're running like 16, it depends on what was going on in practice. What was really impressive though was all those athletes were voluntarily asked to be monitored, and they were simulating a practice, right? So they had completed their OTAs. They had 3 or 4 weeks until they were going to be in camp, and they all wanted to make sure that they were getting in the correct amount of conditioning so they wouldn't be sore when practice actually started.
It was very cool technology, and for those who aren't familiar with it, they actually have a system of sensors that they can put on the athletes, and they're very small. You wouldn't even really notice them in the jerseys, but it allowed the strength and conditioning program for the Steelers to track all these different metrics and let them know about how much load they were putting on the body. So you have all this experience. You've been doing it for many years. Kristine, you're almost ready for finalize your PhD, very accomplished, and everything they've seen the Steelers. What is the future for Western football? What is the future for the strength and conditioning program?
Okay, well, the last 6 years, we've been using sensors in our helmets, right, to find out the number of impacts and at what, force rate they're coming in at the athletes. So that company, G-Force Tracker, is a Canadian company, and we had a phone call earlier this week with Jerry, one of their, one of their owners, developers, and they have a performance side to this sort of impact sensor. So we're going to be the test site for that. So that's big news for us this week.
Yep.
So we're going to start to be, we're going to have something very similar to Catapult, and we're looking forward to implementing that this season with all of our athletes.
That's going to be fantastic. Hopefully it doesn't just improve performance, but also the safety of the athletes. If anyone wanted to get a hold of either of you, had any questions about football, strength and conditioning, what would be the best way to touch base with you?
Email.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they looked on the directory, or it's easy, mine is jwatso45@uwo.ca.
Yep. Mine's kwalkie55@uwo.ca.
Perfect. I want to thank you both for being on the show today.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us, Mike. It was awesome.